Hey guys, welcome back to Community Starcraft 2. I'm your host Magnet, and we're going to be looking at how to use Mutalisks against Terran. And I have a little note there that says harass and defend. That's the main purpose of getting Mutalisks out, is to defend against drops and to counter-harass your opponent. You're often not just going to win a lot with Mutalisks by just attacking right in there. So this is a lot of trouble that people have with Mutalisks. It's just the finesse that's required to keep them alive and keep them useful throughout the game, and not just throw them away to an attack. So we're going to talk a lot about how to use them, and in different situations throughout various different circumstances. So we will talk about that as we jump into the game. So the first game we're going to be taking a look at is Inertio, who's our Zerg, and he's going to be fighting Jogji. Let's see here. So we're just not going to pay attention to most of the game up until the Mutalisks start to come out. We will talk a little bit how to get into Mutalisks though, considering they will kind of be your backbone to your army throughout most ZvTs. So the idea in ZvT is that you're going to be mostly on Muta, Ling, Bane, unless you want to really run some other unusual unit compositions. But this has been the standard in ZvT for a long time because it's been proven to be the most effective in the right hands. So the idea is that with your composition, you want your Ling and Bane to blow up the Terran's units, while the Mutalisks do as little bit of cleanup work as possible. So if you ever get down to a point where it's just Mutalisks fighting Marines, then you need to disengage, otherwise you're going to die. And if you don't ever have enough Ling Bane to fill that up and eventually kill that army, then you're going to die as well. So the whole idea with Mutalisks is to prevent taking damage from drops and to harass them at the same time. But also they can help here and there while cleaning up armies. But their main purpose is just to not really get into fights and just to wear the opponent down in various other means. So let's go ahead and just jump into the parts of the game that start to matter. Just watching from the Zerg perspective, his first objective obviously is to get lair at a fairly reasonable time, and a third base at a fairly reasonable time, so he's starting to push queens out against this Reaper, which we've talked about a little bit in other videos, and again, if you want to see those, there's a playlist link down in the comments. And we will talk more specifically about how to defend against Reaper Hellion, considering that's going to be really common as well. But you want to try and get your third base up as soon as possible, so you can see Inertio pushing out his third base along with these queens. And the lair is going to be the next step. Once you get Zergling speed, your next 100 gas should usually be on lair. There's not much else to spend it on at that point. So grab your lair as soon as possible, and obviously the Spire is going to follow that. And he started Burrow for a second. I think that was a mistake. So the other side with Mutalisks is you do also want to upgrade your Ling Bane, considering they're doing most of the work in the fights. Double upgraded Ling Baneling is going to be your greatest ability to defend anything that might come at you. So there's the lair starting now. Zergling speed is finishing up. 1-1 is on the way as well. So you can see Inertio's timings are pretty good. You could have started the lair a lot earlier and gotten the Spire earlier, but I mean it's not that crucial of a deal. But we will get to the Mutalist here in just a second. So fast forwarding. The lair is coming up right now. The Spire should follow it basically immediately when it finishes. So there's a Baneling Nest right now. The Baneling Nest is actually pretty late. One thing I also want to mention is that the better way to buffer against Terran plays is to get Baneling speed as soon as possible. So getting your Baneling Nest earlier than this and getting Baneling speed started, maybe even before the Spire, is going to be a lot better option. The only way you would start the Spire earlier is if you were really worried about some type of weird attack, maybe like Marauder Hellion or something like that. But even then, you need roaches to defend against that anyway, so this is all really on you to scout and make sure you understand what's going on. But Baneling speed, I would say, is more important to have sooner rather than later, and it's okay to delay your Spire just in favor of Baneling speed. So Baneling speed, it really ideally should be started as soon as your lair is finished, because it does so much for you in these bigger fights. But nevertheless, we're going to see Inertio kind of play this out. So this is a really nice game from Inertio. This is why I picked this replay, because his Mutalisk control and his Mutalisk decision making is just perfect. And once we get to that stage, you'll be able to see it. Some Marines are coming up here, and again, this is all Ling Bane that's going to be defending against this. And if he had Baneling speed, this would already be gone by now. So that's why it's really important to stay on top of that. And this is why you need Mutas out, is because the drops can be endless, and it takes forever to run your units around and deal with those. So the Mutalist's primary goal is to deal with drops and kind of prevent them from being too big of a problem. But secondarily, if you've ever pushed them off enough, you can just go over to his base and start to dish back the pain to him. So drop coming down now. There's 13 Mutalisks on the way, so we're going to start to see them come into play. See, being annoying is Jogji picking off a couple of Banelings for free, but if the Mutalisks were there, it would have prevented from that drop ever getting on the ground. Granted, it's a little early for Mutalisk anyway, but from this point forward, he shouldn't deal a lot with drops, assuming he's able to stay on top of where the medevacs are. So Mutalisk start to rally out, and you will still want to find time to spend gas on banelings. It can't just be only Mutaling. The banelings are the things that actually kill the Marines. So what Inertio is going to do right away is he's just going to say, you know what, I'm going to get right on top of you right away because I was able to push that first attack away with my banelings and Zerglings. I'm going to start harassing you and making you deal with this. And you can see, all he wants to do with these Mutalisks is just kill workers and maybe kill some infrastructure and not lose any. Losing Mutalisks is one of the biggest ways to just give away a game. So he's trying to target down what he can. He still hasn't really lost anything yet. Mutalisk still staying aggressive on the map. And if you have this much APM, which is what you're going to want to seek, you'll notice that he's still managing to inject between everything. So his injects are still going well. But if you're able to keep your Mutalisks busy and doing stuff, then you're going to be in really good shape. Trying to pick off whatever you can. Maybe you can pick off these mines before they burrow. You don't ever want to try to engage this many Marines, so that's something you definitely don't want to do. So all the Mutalisks are going to be doing is just trying to stay alive and stay away from the bulk of the Marines for the rest of the game. Eventually the Terran's going to push out, and that's why Inertio has this army hanging out here. So he'll know it when it comes across. Baneling speed is obscenely late. This is such a late baneling speed. It's really... This is why you want to get baneling speed before anything, because you're just going to trade so poorly against these if you don't have it. But the Mutalisk still just kind of sharking around a little bit. There we go, he can pick off these drops if he sees it, and he doesn't, so that's unfortunate. But if he was able to grab those drops, that's 20 supply for free, only because you were staying active with your mutas. So, a little bit of an attack going down here. He finally does see the drop for real this time, so he heads back in there. And the Mutalisk can clean up small amounts of Marines like this, but you still do want to have some Zerglings to buffer against those. So taking some hits on the Mutalisk is pretty unfortunate, but even still doing okay. Drop comes down again. The Mutalisks are there to clean it up, so Mutalisks are doing their job so far, just harassing and defending against drops. So continue to fast forward here. So Mutalisks start to get in a little bit better position. More banelings being morphed. And eventually, the way you're going to kill Terran is eventually with good enough baneling hits. You're usually not going to kill them with a lot of Mutalisks, or you can just slow them down enough to have them produce such a small army that you can kill that fairly effortlessly with your army anyway. And obviously the way you can slow them down is with a lot of muta harass. So Inertio is still being pretty aggressive about this, still trying to keep Jockji on the back foot. Definitely want to be careful against those mines. You can't afford to take a lot of damage from these mines, and he does. So that's unfortunate, but even still, he still has a lot of banelings, still has a lot of other stuff. The Mutalisks are just here to buffer, and are just not really to buffer, they're here to just kind of help out against whatever they can, but they're not going to be the ones that end the game. Muta upgrades are also pretty important. One of the late game styles that you've seen every once in a while is the Mutalisks will just continue to get upgrades, and they'll never switch into anything like Ultras. They'll just go like Mutaling Bane with like +3 mutas, and they can harass and counterattack and do all kinds of stuff. So it's another part of the utility that they have. So I apologize for being kind of bad frames. This is one of the worst maps for my computer as far as frame rate, but still the Mutalisk being super aggressive right now. And in the meantime, if he can stop any of these maybe counter plays, maybe get on top of these medevacs while they're fully loaded, then that'll be great. Right now, this is a good point to where you can start to Mutalisk harass. You can kill a couple workers here. If he's able to ever recover from the other side, which we'll eventually see, then you can just fly straight into the main and start killing off other buildings here. Now, if you ever do get your Mutalisk inside the main, the buildings you want to target are things like reactors and tech labs, and maybe the engineering base if he's not fully upgraded yet. Those are all your primary targets if you're inside the main base. The SCVs don't matter as much because it takes them so long to rebuild their reactors, and it takes them a long time to rebuild their engineering base and restart their upgrades if you cancel those. But those are often a good way that Zerg can win games. So now that everything starts to rally forward a little bit, Inertio is still being super aggressive, but he has to be a little bit careful. Again, you don't ever want Mutalisks fighting Marines, unless it's only like 5 or 6 Marines and you're really desperate to kill them. But even still, staying super aggressive is Inertio with his Mutalisks, and I don't know why he's being so passive about heading over into this gold base. Oh, he's heading back here to kill this drop. Okay, that makes more sense. So you can even see the targeting from Jockji. He's trying to target down individual Mutalisks because he knows that's the long-term play here from Inertio. But now that everything's cleaned up, there's no drops on the map, he can start to be more aggressive, he can start to harass with these Mutalisks a little bit. And he's just going to stay right on top of these Marines and whatnot. And notice how he's using, every single time he fights, he always has a buffer here with his Mutalisks. It's going to be Ling and Bane dealing most of the damage while the Mutalisks clean up the medevacs and maybe a few stray Marines that are around. And And since he's getting good trades throughout this game, now the Mutalisks are by themselves. He needs to eventually refill on this, and he does have another swath of Banelings coming through. It could have been really bad if it hit the Banelings, but Mutalisk taking a lot of damage now. He needs to be a little bit careful, and he can start to swoop in here and start to kill stuff, which he's doing with his Banelings, but honestly, the Banelings should always be meant for Marines. You definitely never really want to kill workers with Banelings, unless you don't really have any other choice, because if you're getting Banelings on top of their workers, then that means that Zerglings could do basically the exact same job. So the Banelings should really be targeted on the Marines as much as possible. And if you were to ever throw this Mutalisk ball away, this would basically end the game in favor of Jockji, which we've seen before in other pro tournaments and whatnot. Players will lose their entire Mutalisk flock and then they're just dead because they don't have any units. So this is why keeping your Mutalisk alive and controlling this well for this long is such an important factor of this matchup. So throwing a couple of units in here is Nerchio kind of just losing them pointlessly. I have the game on slower speed right now, but Mutalisks start to swoop in here. They can do things like cancel bases. By this point, the Mutalisks have no buffer, so the Mutalisks definitely need to run away. But rather than running away, you can opt to just fly somewhere else. So you can, instead of trying to fight this army, you can just go around here and start seeking around the back, seeing what you can kill. Maybe more SCVs. Maybe you can get in the main, start killing those reactors and stuff. So we're going to have to see what his actions are with his Mutalisks. It doesn't look like he's too eager about doing anything quite yet. He's staying fairly aggressive though, and he's trying to pull this army around and prevent it from dealing too much damage to him, but you don't want to lose any Mutalisks like he's doing now. So, mines up here for Jockji. More Banelings being morphed is every single time you want to fight. You definitely do need to make sure you have Banelings and some sort of Zergling buffer as well. But the Mutalisks are getting back and aggressive again, now that he realizes... So, what he just did there is he pulled the army from Jockji basically all the way back down here, and since the Mutalisks are so fast, he went right back up and started to kill whatever he could. And sometimes you can kill command centers and stuff like that. I think he might actually get this. No, apparently not. Some Marines rally back up here. Now all of a sudden, because the Marines are in a bad position, you can start to force them to recover in weird ways. So if, let's say for example, this base was mining, which it is right now, if you just ran a bunch of Zerglings back over here, then the Mutalisks could be in one spot killing stuff, and the Zerglings could come and counterattack and kill stuff anyway. So there's a lot of different ways you can utilize your Mutalisks to force them to react. So Mutas are still compiling here quite a bit. This is what you need to be careful of though, and you'll notice something that I haven't touched on yet is the presence of Overseers in this hotkey. So what they'll do, pros will typically have all these Mutalisks and their Overseers hotkeyed to one hotkey so that they can control them separately from the rest of the army. And you want to use the Overseers with these as well, because if you come across mines like this and you don't realize how many Mutalisks you have and you fly them all into mines, then you're dead, and you would have probably realized that a lot sooner if you had Overseers with your army. And then maybe you can tank the Widowmine shots with a couple of Zerglings here and there and then kill them with your Mutas or whatever else needs to be done. But having Overseers in your Mutalisk ball is a really big deal. So Jockji's upgrades are way behind, just now barely getting 3-3, almost finished up. From Nerchio's point of view, you want to have your Hive by now. So there's a couple things that he is slacking on despite his really good play thus far. Is Mutalisk broken up? Yeah, I don't see any Overseers with this anymore. It seems like it's like half and half. Yeah, there's the rest of them. So, there's a little bit of a harassment that Nerchio is going to be doing, and this is what you can do with your Mutalisk as well, is just try and force his army to come over here and deal with this, because he has to do something about it. So if he starts running Marines over there, all of a sudden his Marines are nice and unaware of where the rest of your army is. You can counterattack over here if you want to. There's a lot of different things your Mutalisk can do for you that you wouldn't normally realize. He isn't quite in position yet, but he is rallying everything forward. I think he's just going to go for it. And yeah, here we go. So this is a really nice game here from Nerchio, playing this out exactly how you would hope. And sending the Banelings in first, of course, to try and tank as many shots as possible from the rest of the army. Now the Mutalisks are here. The Mutalisks can be separated to kill other stuff. They're just kind of here to help out a little bit against the rest of the Terran army. You'll notice he did pull back against the mines. And filtering through, the Banelings are the things that are really killing everything, while the Mutalisks are just being irritating. And now he can just start to target this down since he pushed the army so far away. And this is mostly just because he has the mobility. And again, you don't want to really waste Banelings on these workers, because the Mutalisks and the Zerglings will kill them anyway. You want to try and target the Banelings on the army. But the Mutalisks are really doing fantastic. He hasn't lost basically any Mutas this game. Maybe like 6 or 7 throughout the entire game, and that's just craziness, because he's at 27 right now. His upgrades are really good. He's getting +1 flyer attacks. More Banelings on the way, and Nerchio's really making Jockji kind of look amateur. which is crazy because Jockji is really one of the premier Terrans in the world, and Nerchio is not really known for being one of the greatest Zergs, so kind of just playing out of his mind as Nerchio right now. So more Mutalisks starting to flock up here, and again, you can be as annoying as you want with these Mutalisks, and as long as you don't take damage with them, then you're still doing exactly what you're supposed to. So he might actually kill this orbital while the rest of the army buys time. So what you could do is try to pull his army over here and try to get them to recover to the Mutalisks. While the Mutalisks are killing the base, then you can start to roll in your Banelings and make him have to micro against it, and worst case, you're still going to get the base because he can't defend it. So yeah, there we go. He just starts to roll in here and destroy everything. So Mutalisks are still being protected by Zergling and Baneling, and as soon as those Zerglings and Banelings run out, and you're faced with only having to fight Marines, unless it's a tiny amount of Marines like this, you're going to want to retreat. But Nerchio really making Jockji look bad, and mostly because of his smart decisions with his Mutalisks. If at any point during that game he lost his Mutas, that would most assuredly just end the game. So that's one of the prolonged ways you're going to stay ahead. Secondarily, the Mutalisk can be an unusual response to different things. More specifically, mech, and I hope this is the right replay. Yeah, this is it. So this is a replay in which Supernova plays mech, and Leenock for a little while was kind of an innovator as far as dealing with mech in a very unique way, and that was just staying so aggressive with his Muta Baneling, or rather his Muta Zergling against mech, that there's not a whole lot that the Terran can do to defend, and the Muta Ball just continues to grow if you keep it alive, and it gets so far out of control that the Mutalisks can do whatever they want. And that's what we're going to see here, just kind of precurse this game. So we're going to watch this from Leenock develop over time, and we're going to see him respond to mech in this manner. Now mech, normally you would need to respond with things like roaches, maybe swarm hosts and stuff like that, which is why this is so unusual. It is an option here, as Leenock is going to show us, but you do need to make sure you keep your Mutalisks alive at all times. If you start to lose it, especially against mech, or if you clump up a lot against Thors and you lose all your Mutas, then you're dead. So yeah, I guess I'll just precurse this game appropriately. So we'll see this game develop, and like I said, most of the time we don't pay attention too much to the rest of the game unless it gets to an important part. Supernova is being a little bit annoying with a bunker and Reapers and whatnot, but you can just eventually push this out. Spinecrawler, Queen. We'll talk about defending stuff like this in other videos. And again, if you want more Zerg videos, there's a link down in the comments that'll get you to the rest of the videos that I make about Zerg, so take a look at that. Supernova, in the meantime, going to be taking his command center, which is normal. You'd usually take this command center on the low ground. I'm not sure why he's not doing that. Maybe because of the bunker, he's worried that that Leenock would just walk right past it and go kill his main. So more command centers on the way here. Pretty normal stuff here out of Supernova. Pretty fast third command nonetheless, but still, Leenock's next concern needs to be taking a third base, getting his creep spread, getting his gas mining, which he's already doing right now, getting Zergling speed first of all, which he's already started, and then getting his lair, which he's started as well. So this is going to be actually like a 2-base Muta. This is a lot faster Muta, and it defends against a lot of different random things. So like those big Hellion plays, Banshee plays, stuff like that are going to be kind of stopped by the Mutalisks. But it still will be a little bit late. So this type of 2-base Spire build is a little more rare, a little harder to run. You would like to see a faster lair if you're going to do 2-base Spire, but the idea with 2-base Spire is just to defend against any of these annoying harassments and get into your own third base. It'll offer a little faster counter-attack potential as well. Maybe they won't have turrets up in time, stuff like that. So that's another option for you. A little bit of a Zergling run by here as Leenock is dealing actually quite a bit of damage with this, so doing pretty well. This doesn't really have anything to do with the Mutalisk, and he didn't kill a whole lot. 3 workers killed, so yeah, not too bad. Now the Banshees are out, and Supernova takes a lot of damage on that Banshee. Now the Mutalisks are about to be done. He can basically resist any harassment from these Hellions from this point on pretty decently with the filler of Zerglings and Queens and whatnot. But the Mutalisk coming out is going to push them away for good, so that's the whole idea with the faster Spire. Mutalisk popping out in about 10 minutes. You can kill this Banshee basically right away. If it cloaks, you can make an Overseer, which he should already have. Either way. So starting to come up here, now we can see that it is mech as the armory is coming down with no engineering bays. So mech is on the way. Counterattack potential with the Mutalisk is pretty high, and if you can stay on top of the Hellions with these Mutalisks and just get whatever you can, and that'll be a really nice trade. You don't ever want to overcommit here though, and Leenock's being just a little bit sloppy with these. He only lost 1 Mutalisk, but he did trade it out for a Viking, and now Supernova knows what's going on, so he's going to start Thors. And this is a big deal when you're using Mutalisk against these against mech, is that you don't ever want to take huge Thor hits, which means you need to understand how to engage Thors with your mutas. So mutas are not going to kill this Banshee as they don't realize where it went. So that's kind of funny. But still, this little harassments and whatnot, they all have an expiration date on it because the Mutalisks are out. So Mutalisk, a little bit of Zerglings to fill. He just cleans up those Hellions basically effortlessly, and Supernova has to stay in space for a little while longer. So counterattack potential is going to continue to build up here. And Leonok is starting Roaches to fill in a little bit against this mech, which, like I said, you sometimes will want to do against this mech plays. This is mostly to stop any big Hellion run-bys. And against mech as well, if you switch back and forth between Mutalisks and Roaches, it'll kind of keep them on the back foot as far as reacting properly to your composition. So, from the Terran perspective, let's put a little bit of a reverse kind of theory or logic here, is that from the Terran's perspective, if you see them making Mutalisks, you will want to make Thors. And no tanks, more importantly. So then you can switch into Roaches and start to kill off their Thors and then switch back into Mutalisks because they have no Thors. So you can kind of go back and forth in that way and kind of mess them up, and that's a little bit what we're going to see in this game. So you can start to see the Roaches coming out on the way. Mutalisks are still on the map, they're still picking this stuff off. They still are going to try to take a little opportunities to harass, but if they get caught by Thors, then that's going to be pretty bad. So now he's going to run a timing against this mech composition to try and eliminate some of these Thors. And if he can do that, then the Terran is going to be forced to produce tanks. So like you can see the tanks are already on the way because the Roaches are on the field. And from this point forward, Supernova is going to be thinking, oh, well, there's no real threat with the Mutalisks yet, or at least right now. So I'm going to worry about the Thors, or rather worry about the Roaches more often than not. And if I just make tanks, I'll be fine against the Roaches. And that's kind of the mind game that Leonok is playing. So a lot of Roaches coming out here. You can see Leonok's money is building up quite a bit. You can wait to produce these Mutalisks all in one bunch if you don't quite know what kind of damage you're going to do yet. And more importantly, he just wants to keep showing these Roaches as much as possible so that he can force out as many tanks and as few Thors as he can. So right now, it seems stupid that there's only a few Mutalisks on the field, and this video is about Mutalisks. But trust me in saying that all these Roaches are for is to trick the mech into producing tanks and then to switch back. So we will see that come up here in just a little bit. Leonok's still just trying to get more bases. Infestation Pit on the way. Another Spire just for double upgrades so he can continue to go into this Mutalisk heavy style. So you can see he's still banking up resources right now. He's still waiting to produce these Mutalisks up until a point where it's going to catch the Terran totally off guard. Supernova is kind of preemptively expecting this a little bit. He's starting a Thor right now. But still, there's only like going to be 4 Thors on the map. And 4 Thors, if you have like 25 Mutalisks, you can just magic box them, and all of a sudden the Thors don't do anything. So Leonok's still just waiting and waiting. Still is kind of trying to show him the Roaches here every once in a while to make sure that he knows that they are a threat. So continuing to try and get him to produce tanks, and that's exactly what Supernova is doing. So we will continue to see this game develop. And eventually, a huge swell of Mutalisks is going to be Leonok's response to the mech pushing out. So this is an unusual style here from Leonok, as Supernova has started to figure this out. He started to be like, well, this is a lot of tanks, and I haven't seen him be too aggressive with the Roaches, so I should probably keep supplementing this with Thors. But if you get enough Mutalisks at this rate, and they don't have a lot of Vikings or Ravens or Mines or anything like that mixed into their composition, then the Mutalisks can actually just kill the entire mech army by themselves. Notice that Leonok still hasn't started to produce this yet, as he starts the Mutalisks right now, so the Mutalisks are on the way. So we will see this start to be pieced together here. So Roaches and stuff starting to rally up here. Now that the mech starts pushing across the map, he knows that he has to do something. So there's 24 Mutalisks in production, so that's a big deal. So he starts to throw away supply as well to just continue to get more and more into Mutalisks. And from this point on, he knows that there's a lot of tanks and a lot of Hellbats on the field that are not going to do anything against the Mutalisks. So all he has to worry about right now is these 6 Thors, and once he gets them all put together, he will be in great shape. So continue to see Mutalisks being incremented out here. 15 Mutalisks on the way, so just crazy amounts of Mutalisks, and lots of Spines here to buffer as well against the tank, so he doesn't take too much damage from them just ignoring the Mutalisks and continuing to go. Now, this is one big important thing here, is that this army needs to be stopped. You obviously need to find a way to kill this. The Mutalisks can kill it, but you do need to magic box against the Thors, which I think we've talked about just a little bit in a micro video, but we'll touch on it now. The idea here is you need to let the Mutalisks naturally spread out, so let them stop and spread, like they're doing right now. And then when you attack, you don't attack move at it, you actually just move command over the top of his army and then hit hold position. so that the Mutalisks don't all bunch up into one place and that the Thors don't get amazing shots. So we'll see this army start to come in here, and eventually Leenock will magic box over these units. Look how many Mutalisks this is, insanity. And eventually when he magic boxes this army, or he might actually just base trade, so yeah, that's another option you can do against Mag, is knowing that if he can't ever refill, then he can't ever really win. So he's just going to assure this victory as much as possible, going to kill as much as he can with these Mutalisks, and then not fight until he's absolutely forced to. But he knows there's only a finite amount of Thors, especially if he gets in here and starts killing the production. So that's the whole idea here from Leenock. Some pretty big base trade coming up here, but Leenock is... Trust me when I say that Leenock's at a huge advantage right now. He's even resupplying his lost drones with more Mutalisks, so this is quite the huge number of Mutalisks. He does obviously need to keep one base alive, and that's going to be this base. So whenever those spines start to get attacked, it's going to be kind of his moment to recall his Mutalisks and start fighting those, fighting the army with the Mutalisks as well. But still, the amount of Thors out here is just laughable because he was able to force so many tanks with his roaches. So the Mutalisks are starting to clean up basically everything, and once the fight comes down, you're going to see how fast this army dies, simply because he magic boxes well with his Mutalisks, and the Thors can't really do anything. So, here we go. Mutalisks starting to rally forward. And we can see Thors just kind of derping out here, kind of just hanging out. Look at Leenock's spread, more importantly. His spread on the Mutalisks is enormous. So you can see him spreading out in 3 different groups, and as soon as he's ready to go, he's just going to surround this from all sides. Those are Overlords, so they're useful. And then now that he goes, notice that his Mutalisks are not going to bunch up, so he just flies right over it, and he stops. So that if these were on move command, or if these were on A move, they would all clump up, but instead, these are all just actually stopping right over top of the army, and the Mutalisks will automatically prioritize the Thor because they are anti-air. So once he does this, he just holds position. Now everything is dying horribly, and once the Thors are dead, there's really nothing to worry about, and the Mutalisks just kind of laugh at everything else. So we're down to just Vikings right now, and the Mutalisks just wreck everything. So this is definitely an answer to mech. If you're having trouble in this matchup, is try to force them to produce tanks by showing them roaches or something. But the thing is that if they're on such a low Thor count, you can just magic box them and win easily. You can see that this game should be over in the next little while, but there's honestly no way Supernova is ever going to get enough to defend against this, so just take my word for it that Leenock eventually just kills him, considering there's so many Thors here, but he can still magic box these if they ever try to get out on the map. If this were to even go longer, Leenock could retake as many bases as he wants, knowing that it's going to take forever for these Thors to push back out on the map, so this game's pretty much over. And this video is pretty much over, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys got some good ideas as far as how to control Mutalisks and how to use them. So if you want to get more videos, especially Zerg videos, there is a link down in the comments for more, so look out for that, and I'll be back with more videos soon, so see you later.